this video is for you if you were absent on Monday the 1st or Tuesday the 2nd, or just need to go back over what we did if you're trying to make up work from that day. And unfortunately, for this one here, it's going to be a long video because there's just no other way to go about it. Let me quickly describe what we did, and then I'll tell you what you need to do, what you need to get done to get a grade. We started with this. The first question I asked everyone was to write down as many things as they can remember that any teacher has ever told you about how to do multiple choice questions. The reason for this is we were talking about multiple choice and how to do them in an AP class setting, which is different than in a STAR class type setting. And I talked to them about how some of the things other teachers have told them are really good ideas for AP, but some of the things you learned in previous years won't work for AP even though they were really good for STAR. Things like when you read a passage, annotating on the left-hand side with summaries and the right-hand side with associations, which is a wonderful idea, but unfortunately for the AP test, there isn't enough time to do it. So some of the things I'm going to tell you are different, and that is because this test is just a different type of test than what you've prepared for before. So there are some differences. I went through a couple quick reminders. There is a reflective journal due by Friday. I sent out grade reports last Wednesday, and anything you want me to regrade, you need to send me a remind message about. On Google Classroom, there's also an opportunity to get extra credit that involves your parents filling out a form so that I can send them grade reports directly for your grade in my class as well. So with that said, we're gonna get straight into talking about multiple choice. And what I did in week 20, which was the last week which was the week before everything froze over, on Monday and Tuesday of that week, we went to School City. We read, I had you take a short quiz where you read a passage and then answered 7 multiple choice questions. And today we're going to talk about those questions. And there's a file you need to open, and the directions are on my screen right now. You need to go to Google Drive, click on Shared with Me. There'll be a file that'll be like, the name will be like Your Name - Week 20 Rerun. When you open it up, it will look like this. Instead of first and last, it will be your first name, your last name. Again, it's not on Google Classroom. You have to follow these directions right here. And the reason for that is because it is personalized, as you'll see. So when you scroll down here on page 2, here is the passage, and you need to stop and read the passage. So I'm going to give you all a minute to do that now. America's boys are broken, and it is killing us. The brokenness of the country's boys stands in contrast to its girls, who still face an abundance of obstacles, but go into the world increasingly well-equipped to take them on. The past 50 years have redefined what it means to be female in America. Girls today are told they can do anything, be anyone. They've absorbed the message. They're outperforming boys in school at every level, but it isn't just about performance. To be a girl today is to be the beneficiary of decades of conversation about the complexities of womanhood, its many forms and expressions. Boys, though, have been left behind. No commiserate movement has emerged to help them navigate towards a full expression of their gender. It's no longer enough to be a man. We no longer even know what that means. Too many boys are trapped in the same suffocating, outdated model of masculinity, where manhood is measured in strength, where there is no way to be vulnerable without being emasculated, where manliness is about having power over others. They are trapped, and they don't even have the language to talk about how they feel about being trapped, because the language that exists to discuss the full range of human emotions is still viewed as sensitive and feminine. Men feel isolated, confused, and conflicted about their natures. Many feel that the very qualities that used to define them, their strength, aggression, and competitiveness, are no longer wanted or needed. Many others never felt strong or aggressive or competitive to begin with. We don't know how to be, and we're terrified. But to even admit our terror is to be reduced because we don't have a model of masculinity that allows for fear or grief or tenderness or the day-to-day sadness that sometimes overtakes us all. Case in point. A few days ago, I posted a brief thread about these thoughts on Twitter, knowing I would receive hateful replies in response. I got dozens of messages impugning my manhood, the mildest of them calling me a soy boy, a common insult among the alt-right that links soy intake to estrogen. And so the man who feels lost but wishes to preserve his fully masculine self has only two choices: withdrawal or rage. We've seen what withdrawal and rage have the potential to do. School shootings are the most public of tragedies. Others, on a smaller scale, take place across the country daily. Another commonality amongst shooters is a history of abuse towards women. To be clear, most men will never turn violent. Most men will turn out fine. Most will learn to navigate the deep waters of their feelings without ever engaging in any form of destruction. Most will grow up to be kind. But many will not. We will probably never understand why any one young man decides to end the lives of others, but we can see at least one pattern, and that pattern is glaringly obvious. It's boys. I believe in boys. I believe in my son. Sometimes, though, I see him, 16 years old, swallowing his frustration, burying his worry, stomping up the stairs without telling us what's wrong, and I want to show him what it looks like to be vulnerable and open, but I can't. Because I was a boy once, too. There has to be a way to expand what it means to be a man without losing our masculinity. I don't know how we open ourselves up to the rich complexity of manhood. I think we would benefit from the same conversations girls and women have been having for the past 50 years. I would like men to use feminism as an inspiration in the same way that feminists use the civil rights movement as theirs. I'm not advocating a quick fix, there isn't one. But we have to start the conversation. Boys are broken, and I want to help. Then after you have read the passage, you're ready to start talking about the questions. And what's about to follow here is, I actually just recorded the explanation I gave in class for one of my classes. So you're just going to have to go along with it. It'll tell you everything to fill in. It will tell you everything to do. It will talk about, and for students who are on Zoom in class that day, there was a poll popped up where they could vote for which one they wanted. You're not going to be able to do that, but you still can as you go through for each one. You want to make sure you are thinking about what the right answers are, and taking notes and filling in everything that it says to fill in. So once you're done, once you have filled in everything that it says to fill in, and you filled in all the boxes, and it's ready for me to go give you a grade for your daily grade for that day. Once all that is ready, then send me a remind message telling me it's ready to look at, and I'll grade that, and I will update that grade. So we're about to flip over to that other video, and it should have everything you need. Goodbye. You should now be able to see my screen, and on here, I'll go through what's going on here. So this here is the file you're currently have open. This is where you are. If you scroll down to this page here, you'll see where it says question 1. Then you'll see the question, the answers. It says your original answer. And instead of this nonsense on your document, it should have the actual answer that you put in when you took this quiz a couple weeks ago. Underneath that, where it says how confident are you, that's what you told me, how confident you told me you were on the day you took that, and so forth. What we're going to do is we're going to go through this question by question. So you should be looking at the Zoom screen. Of course, you need to have the file open yourself. After we talk through each question, there's a box here. It says reflection, where you're going to want to fill some information in. And I will be looking at what you put in those boxes. That'll be my primary indication of how well you are participating and if you're actually keeping up and doing what you should be doing. So after each question, you should be writing something in that box. So the first question says, the author's opening lines, America's boys ... killing us, capture the audience's attention by A, highlighting a disturbing statistic, B, sketching a hypothetical scenario, C, alluding to an anecdote about his son, D, presenting a startling claim, or E, quoting the slogan of a political group. Now, you can see on there what you answered when we took it the first time. You can keep that answer, or you, if you want, can change your answer now. I'm about to pop up on the Zoom screen a poll for everyone to vote on what they think the answer is now, so feel free to change your mind if you want. I'll give you about 30 seconds to think about what the answer is, and then I'll pop the poll up. Now you should have a Zoom poll up. Vote for what you think the best answer is. Right now, about half of you have voted. I'm waiting for the rest of you. Waiting on 3 more people. If you're one of the 3 who haven't voted, you have 10 more seconds. You really don't want to be the person who hasn't voted. That's definitely going to hurt your participation grade. 2 more. Closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so if you're looking on my Zoom screen, I'm going to go through this here. So only 1 person thinks the answer is A. Only 2 people think the answer is B. Only 1 person thinks it's C. 15 of you think it's D, and nobody voted for E. So for your sake, let's hope it's D, right? As I go through these, I'm going to talk about this, and I'll always start with the least popular one. So like I'll start with the one that has the lowest number of votes. Nobody voted for E, which is good. It is a wrong answer. And I mean, obviously, it doesn't say anything about a political slogan. I'm not going to stress that too much. Let's talk about this one right here, a C. 1 person voted for alluding to an anecdote about his son. And I'm going to say 2 things about why this is wrong. Or 2 things why people might have picked this. And I know I actually had a lot of people picking this one yesterday on my A-Day classes. A lot of people picked this one. So even if you didn't get tricked today, I'm going to tell you 2 things that you need to pay attention to, because you may not have been tricked this time, but these tricks they use a lot, and they may trick you another time. So first of all, a lot of people like to pick answers like this because they see this word here, alluding, and this word here, anecdote. And those, I'm sure there are some people in this room who know exactly what those words mean, and there's probably a lot of you who kind of know what they mean, but you're not sure. And there's going to be some people who just don't know those words. But what I have seen students do a lot in the past, and what I saw a lot of students doing yesterday with my A-Day classes, is go, oh, those are some fancy words. Therefore, that must be the right answer because it's got the big words in it. And you absolutely don't want to be thinking that way, because that's just not how it works on an AP test. Trust me, it just is not. The other thing is, if you do know what an anecdote is, and I'm sure plenty of you do, an anecdote is a short story, like a personal example. And if you look at the text, right here is an anecdote about his son. So it says, alluding to an anecdote about his son, and right here is an anecdote about his son. So why is this a wrong answer? And the answer, and this is another thing you need to be very careful of. In the question, it says, the author's opening lines, from America's Boys to Killing Us. In other words, it's asking about this right here. And this is true on all tests, but it is really, really true on the AP test, and definitely something to watch out for. If they ask you about one specific sentence, they mean only look at that one specific sentence. If they ask you about a specific paragraph, they mean only look at the specific paragraph. One thing I've seen happen, a lot of times they'll ask, like, in paragraph 4, what does the author do, blah, blah, blah. And one of the wrong answers is the thing the author does in paragraph 5. So it's right next to it. And the author does do it. He just doesn't do it in paragraph 4. So you really have to pay attention to what they're saying to look at. And while there is an anecdote about his son, it is not up here. 1 person put highlighting a disturbing statistic. Again, if you look at just this sentence right here, and only look there, because that's the only place the question's asking about, there is no statistic there, so that one's wrong. 2 people picked sketching a hypothetical scenario. Hypothetical is a what if, it could, it might. And if you look just at the part that's highlighted, America's boys are broken, and it is killing us. That's not hypothetical. It's not a what if. It's not a maybe. A hypothetical scenario would be like, and it might kill us, or if we're not careful, it could kill us. Those would be hypotheticals. It isn't that. So the vast majority of you got this right. You got the answer as D. But again, even if you didn't get tricked this last time, remember those things. Be sure you know exactly what part of the question is talking about, and don't assume the fancier words are the ones that are correct. I want everyone to write something in the reflection box right now. Listen carefully. everyone's writing something here. You're writing about what's going to help you not make mistakes in the future, basically. If you got this one wrong, if you got confused or tricked by something, then I want you to think about why you got confused and tricked. Like, what do you need to remember next time to not fall victim to the same trick? For those many of you who did get it right, I still want you to write something. What do you most need to remember about everything I just said? And I just told you about 2 specific tricks they try to use to trick you. What do you need to remember to make sure you don't get tricked in the future? So everyone write something there. What's the most important thing for you to remember about everything I just said? I'm going to give you 90 seconds. This is how I'm gauging participation. Are you writing in the file? All right, everyone should have written something there. We're going to move on to question 2. So again, be looking at my Zoom screen. Question number 3 says, in the 3rd and 4th paragraphs, the author contrasts girls and boys in the United States primarily to A, suggest that boys' performances suffered because of competition from girls. B, imply that the same message has helped girls has undermined boys' self-confidence. C, attribute problems faced by the boys to men's lack of political engagement in the United States. D, identify a key role for women in efforts to redefine the concept of masculinity. Or E, highlight the lack of attention given to the complexities of masculinity in United States culture. This one has a lot more words. I'm about to launch a poll for you to vote. Remember, you can keep the same answers you put before, but you don't have to. I'm waiting on 3 more people to vote. All right, so we'll go through this again. I'll start with the least popular one. So, number 1, suggest that boys' performance has suffered because of competition from girls. One person put that is a wrong answer. For this to be true, he would have to be saying that the reason boys have done worse is because the girls have done better. And if you think about that in a school environment, so if you're a boy and there's a girl in your class who does really good, does that make your grade go down? Obviously not. Like, competition doesn't make someone's performance go down, and it's not like in a school environment, it's not like you have winners and losers, like only one person can pass the class or only one team can pass the class. And in paragraphs 3 and 4, these two right here, there is nothing that suggests that the reason boys are doing worse is because girls are doing good. It's not like that would imply that you can't have both doing good, only one can do good, and I don't think he's saying that at all. One person put C, attribute the problems boys face to men's lack of political engagement in the United States. The closest to support for this is right here where it says no commensurate movement has emerged to help them navigate, where he is saying, oh, there isn't a movement, but there's nothing about this says political. There's nothing here about political. So the word political has nothing to do with paragraphs 3 and 4. There's just nothing in there about that. And therefore, because of that word, C is wrong. 2 people picked D. Identify a key role for women in efforts to redefine the concept of masculinity. This is also a wrong answer. Because he doesn't say anything about women. For if D was correct, what he would have to be saying is, we need women to help fix us. In these 2 paragraphs, he does talk about women. He does talk about those things, but he's not saying that, oh, we need women to help us figure out the right way to be men, or that we need them to help us, or that we can't do it without them, or that they have to do it. He doesn't bring that up ideal. So a key role would mean that the women had a very important role in fixing the men, as opposed to maybe men should need to fix themselves and stop relying on other people. So this right here is just not supported in the text. 5 of you went with B. Imply that the same message that has helped girls has undermined the boys' self-confidence. So that's saying that the message we give girls is making boys feel less confident. Well, what is the message? It's right here. Girls are told that they can do anything, be anyone. For B to be correct, what he'd have to be saying is, when we tell girls they can be anything, that makes boys less confident. When we tell girls they can succeed, that makes the boys less confident. And I don't see anything in the text that suggests that he's saying that, oh, well, if girls are confident, if girls can succeed, then boys can't. Like, the only way that works is if you assume that boys can only succeed when women fail, or something weird like that. So the idea that telling girls that they can do okay makes boys feel bad has no support in the text. The vast majority of you got this right. Number 11 of you got this right. Highlight the lack of attention given to the complexities of masculinity in the United States culture. Again, no matter if you got it right or wrong, I want you to put something in the reflection. What do you most need to remember from everything I just went through to help you not get tricked on a question in the future? You're never going to see this exact question again. You're never going to see this exact passage again, but you're going to have questions that have similar ways of fooling you. So what do you need to keep in mind? 90 seconds, fill something in on the reflection, please. All right, guys, we're going to scroll down now to question number 5. Now, for the first 2 questions, y'all have done pretty good. Almost everybody got number 1 right, and on number 3, the most popular answer, you did pretty well on that one. This one here, I'm waiting to see if you do as well, because the next 2 questions really have, in previous periods, this is where students have done less well, so don't get too confident. Pay attention here. Question 5. In the 5th paragraph, the author discusses a definition of masculinity primarily to A. Contest its accuracy, B. Trace its origin, C. Underscore its limitations, D. Clarify an ambiguity, E. Present a recommendation. I'll be popping the poll up now. Waiting on 6 more votes. If you haven't voted yet, you have 10 seconds to get yours in. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so we're a little more spread out. On the last two, we had both of them. We had a clear best answer that everyone liked. Here, it's a little closer. For A, we have 4 people. For B, we have 4 people. For C, we have 7 people, 5 people, and nobody picked this one here. All right, so we're a lot more spread out here. So obviously a lot more people are wrong on this one. That doesn't surprise me. All right, let's start with E, present a recommendation. That's a wrong answer. He doesn't do that. He in paragraph 5, remember we have to look at just paragraph 5. He doesn't talk about making a recommendation. He doesn't say we should do this anywhere. All right. 4 of you picked B, trace its origins. That is a wrong answer. And the reason that is wrong, to trace the origins of something means to go back to where it started. So if he was tracing the origins of this definition of masculinity, because that's what the question asks about, we would see something like, oh, this idea of men being strong, having to be strong, started back with the ancient Greeks, or, it started when so-and-so first wrote the book, blah, blah, blah. Like, he doesn't talk about where it came from originally, which means he's not tracing its origin. To trace the origin of something means to go back to where it originally started. And in this paragraph, he doesn't do it. He does not do that. 4 of you picked contest its accuracy. And that is a wrong answer. There's 2 ways you could understand contest its accuracy. You could say that he's saying that's not what real manliness is. But even if that's true, in this paragraph, he doesn't really talk about that that's not what it really means to be a man. That's what it would mean to contest its accuracy. Or, like, he clearly disagrees with that idea, this idea where it says manhood is measured in strength. There's no way you have to be strong. He clearly thinks there's problems with that idea, but it's not, he's not saying, oh, that's not factual, and he's not offering it's not accurate. So that's not the main point on this one. So it's not A. So that leaves us with these 2, which are very close. Underscore its limitations and clarify an ambiguity. So since clarifies an ambiguity has fewer votes, I'll start there. I'm guessing some of you are not 100% sure what an ambiguity is. Ambiguity is when things are ambiguous, when it's not clear, when you're not, it could be this or it could be this, when you're not really sure about things. So to clarify an ambiguity is to take something that's confusing and make it clear. That's what I do most of the time. That's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to take some of these questions that are confusing to you, and I'm doing my best to clarify them, make them clear. Hopefully I'm succeeding, but that's at least what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to clarify these ambiguities, make them clear to you. When you look at paragraph 5, though, I don't see anything in paragraph 5 that's unclear or that's confusing that he's trying to clarify. He does talk about they don't have the language to talk about it and they feel trapped. I mean, that's a confusing feeling, but in this paragraph he isn't trying to unconfuse anyone. So it doesn't D doesn't fit. The correct answer is underscore its limitations. Underscore, for those of you who may have been unfamiliar with that word, is like saying highlight or make obvious. When he talks about limitations, he says there's no way to be vulnerable. That's a limitation. There's something they can't do. They are trapped. They don't have the language to talk about it. Those are limitations. So C is the correct answer. Congratulations to those of you who got it right. Everyone, whether you got it right or not, please write something meaningful in the reflection box. What have you just learned that you need to make sure you pay attention to not make mistakes in the future? 90 seconds to fill that in. All right, folks. Moving on to question number 7. This is also one that students have struggled with in previous class periods. Which of the following statements best encapsulates the author's line of reasoning in the passage? A, America's boys are broken and it's killing us. B, the past 50 years have redefined what it means to be female in America. C, they absorb the message, they're outperforming boys in school at every level. D, to be a girl is to be the beneficiary of decades of conversation about the complexities of womanhood, its many forms and expressions. Or E, no commiserate movement has emerged to help them navigate towards a full expression of their gender. There's a lot of words here. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think before I pop the poll up. All right, here comes the poll. Waiting on 2 more votes. All right, so on this one here, this one has does something that I really, really want to draw your attention to because it's something you really have to watch out for on these. So first of all, pay attention to what it's asking. It talks about which of these best shows the author's line of reasoning in the passage. So this time it is talking about the whole passage. And while the whole passage says lots of different things, he has different examples, he has different ideas, all those things. It's asking which one of these best covers everything. And I'm going to point out, well, the passage definitely talks about girls and it definitely talks about women. It is primarily about boys. The main point is about boys. The main topic of conversation, the examples are about boys. So when I'm looking for the sentence that best encapsulates the overall idea, it cannot be one that's about girls. It has to be about boys, meaning it cannot be B, it cannot be C, and it cannot be D. All 3 of those are just obviously wrong. All 3 of those are about girls, and the passage is about, main topic of the passage is about boys, so it cannot be that. So it has to be either A or E. A says America's boys are broken and it's killing us. E says no commiserate movement has emerged to help them navigate towards a full expression of their gender. So it has to be one of those 2. 5 of you picked A, 10 of you picked E. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but the answer they're looking for is A. A is the answer they're looking for. So, this has been one of the most missed ones, and a lot of people have been, like, E has been the most popular answer in every class so far. And I get why. Let me tell you 2 things about E. First of all, E sounds a lot deeper than A. It's got bigger words: commiserate, emerge, navigate, expression of gender. Whereas A is very simple. So I'm guessing some of you are thinking, but A is too simple. E has to be the answer because A is too simple. And if you're thinking that, stop thinking that. That's not how these tests work. A is the answer they wanted. Now, as to why is A better than E? E is talking about how there hasn't been enough of a movement to help boys figure this out. And that is absolutely a major part of his argument. And he talks about that here. But listen to what I just said. That is a part of his argument. It's only a part. That has nothing to do with what he says down here, for instance. Like, it's not connected. E is only talking about a part of his argument. A connects to the whole thing. All of it, the whole essay, everything he says is about his idea that American boys are broken and what he means by that and why he thinks it's a problem and how he thinks to solve it. But the entire essay is about this idea here. This is only a part of his ideas. It's not the whole thing. So because they ask about the author's line of reasoning in the passage, in other words, which of these best shows his idea for the whole passage, A is the answer they're looking for because it connects to everything. E only connects to part of his argument. Now, for those of you who put E, I will tell you, when I first read this, I almost put E myself. E is a very convincing answer, but ultimately it is only about a part of his ideas. A is about the whole thing. And this brings me to something I really, really want to emphasize. This is a trick they use a lot on the AP test. They give you two good answers. In this case, A and E. Both of these seem like really good answers. E isn't wrong. A is just better. So this is something they do a lot. They'll give you two answers that are right, but one of them is better or is more right, in this case that is A, and they expect you to do that. They expect you to figure out which one is the better answer. You have to look out for that a lot on the AP test. They love to do that to you. Two right answers, but one is more right. In the reflection box, write down what you most need to remember to not make this mistake again. For those of you who got it right, still put down what you need to do or what you learned here. I would definitely write something about the fact that there's often two right answers, but one is more right. That is something you need to be aware of because they love to use that trick on y'all. All right, so we did not do great on that one. Only 25%, only a quarter of the class got that one right. 75% of you got it wrong in some way. That's okay. Some of these questions are challenging, and we're trying to figure out what we did wrong so we can not do it again. Let's move on to question 9 and see if we can do better. Question 9, the fifth paragraph, contributes to the reasoning of the author's argument, primarily by A, reminding readers that boys are naturally rebellious, B, emphasizing the greater number of obstacles facing boys than facing girls, C, explaining the complexities of the problems facing boys, D, suggesting the different ways in which language restricts discussions of gender, and E, convince readers that children need more opportunities to express vulnerability. Again, this one is talking about a specific paragraph, so be sure you're looking in the right place. Poll is up. Only 5 people have voted so far, but the answers are looking good at the moment. Need 2 more votes. All right, so we did pretty good on this one. 70% of y'all pick C, explain the complexity of problems facing boys, and C is the correct answer, so almost everybody got this right. I did have a couple people pick A, reminding the readers that boys are naturally rebellious. Now this is paragraph 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm looking in this paragraph, and I don't see anything about boys being rebellious. Now, and I think if you put that, you're probably just sort of, instead of really looking at the text, you're probably just using common sense. Oh yeah, boys are rebellious, because let's face it, we are. But there's nothing in paragraph 5 about that. So if you put that, you probably think of that. I do want to talk about one that I want to talk about D, because, and why is D a wrong answer? Because even though not many of you picked it, I want to point something out to you. It says, suggesting the different ways in which language restricts discussions of gender. Language restricting discussion of gender. Here it says, they don't even have the language to talk about how they feel about being trapped. That 100% sounds like this right here. Language restricts discussion of gender. They don't even know how to talk about what the problem is because they don't have the right language. That looks 100% like this, and it is. So here you have strong textual support for this, and yet I'm telling you D is not the correct answer. And D is 98% correct. However, there's one word that makes D wrong. If it didn't have this word right here, if it didn't say different, or if it did, and it didn't have the S on the end of ways, then this would be correct. But paragraph 5 only talks about one way that language restricts discussion of gender. It doesn't talk about different ways. And therefore, D is wrong. And this is something you need to pay attention to. You need to realize, even if it feels like they're being nitpicky on you. And even if you got this right, this is definitely something you should write for the reflection, just to be aware of this. If an answer choice is 99% right, but one word is wrong, then the answer is wrong. It only takes one word to make it wrong. And that's why D is not correct. I'm not going to talk much more about this one because almost everyone got it right, but quickly, write something on the reflection. At the very least, I strongly suggest adding in that reminder that just if one word is wrong, then the question is wrong, even if the rest of it seems right. All right. All right, folks, let's go ahead and move on to question 11. We did really good on the last one. Can we keep it going? In context, the second sentence of the penultimate paragraph serves as a transitional element that A, expresses the author's sense of despair in the face of the crisis described in the passage. B, suggests the inevitable outcome of the process analyzed in the passage. C, introduces a potential way of addressing an issue discussed in the passage. D, concedes a possible error in the author's conceptualization of a phenomenon. Or E, implies that the context of a problem is far more complex than the author had hitherto acknowledged. Poll is up. Waiting on 4 more votes. Alrighty, so looking at my screen, let's see what we got here. We have 7 people voted for A, 1 voted for B, 4 voted for C, 2 voted for D, and 7 voted for E. Alright, so let's just go through these in order. The least voted for one is B. Suggest that the inevitable outcome of the process analyzed in the passage. This is a wrong answer. And the reason it's wrong is this right here, inevitable outcome. If something's inevitable, it cannot be avoided. When Thanos says he's inevitable, he's saying there's no way to get around me. There's no way to win. Thank God he was wrong. So if he's suggesting an inevitable outcome, that means we can't change it. We can't do anything about it. There's no hope. But in this passage, he's saying we need help and we need to do it. And I want to point out something here. It says transitional element in the question. If you're not sure what that phrase means, well, transition. So what is he changing to? Well, right after this, right here he says there has to be a way to expand it. And then he says, I would like men to use feminism as an inspiration. Like, he uses this phrase to immediately lead into, here's what we can try, here's what we should try. That's the opposite of being inevitable. Inevitable means there's nothing you can do about it. So it's definitely not B. The next least popular one was D. Concedes a possible error in the author's conceptualization of a phenomenon. First of all, that phrase, conceptualization of a phenomenon, that phrase gives me a headache. I can't imagine what it does to y'all who are, haven't read nearly as much as I have, because that's what all I did in college was get a degree in literature. That thing just giving me a headache just to listen to it. But if he's conceding an error, that would mean he's admitting he was wrong about something. I don't see him saying that, so it's not that. C, only 4 people pick C. Introduces a potential way of addressing the issues discussed in the passage. Remember, this is a transitional element. For this to be true, what it would mean is that when he says this, he's leading into saying that he's transitioning to, here's maybe a way to do it. So for C to be true, what we would have to see next would be, in the next sentences or two, him talking about what he thinks a possible solution is. He'd have to say something like, I would like men to use feminism and inspiration, something where he says, here's what I think we might want to try to do. For C to be correct, there'd have to be a sentence shortly after that, like this one right here, saying, here's what I think we should do. And since I do see it right here, and I'm highlighting it with my mouse, guys, C is actually the correct answer on this one. And most of you did not pick that. The answer on this one here is C. He is using this phrase, I don't know. He's basically saying, I don't know what to do, but hey, we could try this. So C is the correct answer. Let me talk about the two that most people voted for. 7 for A and 7 for E, and those are wrong answers. A is wrong for one specific reason. Well, several reasons, but there's one obvious one. This word right here, despair. Despair is giving up. Despair is when you feel like there's no hope. There's nothing we can do. We can't change it. The feeling of despair is, well, I might as well give up because what's the point? I can't win. But in this passage, he's talking about how he would like to change. Like, he's not giving up. He's saying, hey, maybe we could try this. Maybe we should try this. He is saying there's a problem, but he's not giving up. He's not saying we can't ever solve it. He's saying, well, maybe we should try this then. That's not despair. Despair is giving up. So A is wrong just from that word right there. He's not despairing. He's not without hope. E, also a wrong answer, implies that the context of the problem is far more complex than the author has hitherto acknowledged. For this to be true, he would have to be saying that things were a lot more complex than he had mentioned. So for that to be true, he'd have to be saying, okay, I said this, but there's a lot more to it than just that. Oh, I was being too simple, or oh, I was breaking it down too far. For E to be correct, he would have to end the essay by talking about how, you know what, it's really more complicated than that. Or it's more complicated than what I said earlier, or there's more to it than what I just said. And I don't see anywhere where he says that. E is also not a correct answer. We did really badly on this one. C was the correct answer. So guys, before you write the reflection, just take a minute, read over C. Make sure you understand why I'm saying it's the correct answer. If you need to unmute yourself and ask me a question about it, that's fine. But before you write the reflection, just take a look at that. Figure out what it is that stopped you from getting this one right, because a lot of people did not. I'm going to give you a little bit longer. I'm going to give you a lot longer to fill in the reflection than I have been, because this is one we did really bad on. Take a few minutes. Figure out what you need to do differently next time to not get this one wrong in the future. Go ahead and fill in the reflection. All right, let's go ahead and move on to question 13, which is the final question. In the 11th paragraph, consideration of his relationship with his son motivates the author to shift from analyzing an existing definition of masculinity to proposing a new definition of his own. B, undermining a particular understanding of masculinity to calling for the dismantling of gender categories in general. C, examining the current disadvantages of boys to enumerate the resources they still enjoy. D, criticizing the pressures exerted by social conventions on boys to acknowledging the benefits of those conventions. And E, describing the problems facing boys to affirming the possibility of finding solutions. To try to save you all some embarrassment, be sure you know that it asks about the word shift in the question. I'm waiting on 3 more votes. Cutting you off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So, not great. So let's talk about this word shift. Shift is when you change from one thing to another. And if you look at all these answer choices, you'll notice it says something to something. So that all these have a first part and a second part. To be the correct answer, the first part has to be what he's talking about before paragraph 11, and the second part has to be what he's talking about after paragraph 11. So for any of these answer choices to be correct, you have to describe both what he started with and what he's moving to. So A says he started with analyzing a definition of masculinity. Yes, he definitely was analyzing a definition of masculinity before paragraph 11. 2, proposing a new definition of his own. However, I don't see anywhere where he gives a new definition. Nowhere does he say, here's what we should call being manually instead. He doesn't propose a new definition. So even though the first half is true, the second half isn't. A is a wrong answer. B, the first half is undermining a particular understanding of masculinity. That is true. He is definitely undermining it, showing the problems with it. He's definitely saying, here's what traditional masculinity looks like, and here are the problems with it. So the first part is true. Second part, calling for the dismantling of gender categories in general. For that part to be true, he would be ending by saying, we need to get rid of boys and girls and men and women and pretend there's no gender at all. Get rid of all gender stuff. And he's not saying that. Nowhere does he say we need to get rid of all gender categories. Some people may think it's a great idea. Some people are going to think it's a horrible idea. I don't know what he thinks. He doesn't talk about it. He never brings it up. So B is wrong because this is a thing he does not do after paragraph 11. C, first part is examine the current disadvantages of boys. Yes, he definitely starts the essay doing that. 2, enumerating the resources they still enjoy. For this to be true, he'd have to end by saying, you know what, boys have it rough, but they still have this and this and this and this. He's not doing that. He doesn't end by talking about here's the resources they do have. So it's not C. D, first part, criticizing the pressures exerted by social conventions on boys. He definitely starts the essay by doing that. 2, acknowledging the benefits of those conventions. For that to be true, he'd have to end by saying, yeah, but still there are some good things about it. And he doesn't say that. E, describing the problems faced by boys, he definitely starts by doing that. 2, affirming the possibility of finding solutions. For this to be true, he'd have to end by saying there might be a way to find solutions. I think we can do it. E is the correct answer here because that's the only one where both halves are true. For all of he does start by talking about the problems, and he does end by saying there might be solutions. And paragraph 11 is where that starts to switch. So E is the answer they were looking for there. All of the other wrong answers do have parts that seem correct, but they are not fully correct because the second half isn't. All right, so go ahead and fill in this final reflection box. So one more thing you need to take care of. Once you finish this reflection box, please be looking at my screen for a second. You're going to want to scroll all the way up to the very beginning of the document, all the way to the top. And here it says, overall reflection, fill this in last. That's what you want to fill in now. What I want you to put in this box is I want you to think about everything I've said this class period, everything you've thought about this class period, and put down what are the things that are most important for you to remember. What are the things that are most important for you to remember so that you do well next time we have a multiple choice quiz? What are the things that are most important? So, having said that, when I grade this, I will check that you've written everything, so I will scroll through and I will look at all these boxes quickly. But this box is the one I will read most carefully. This is the one I will look at the most carefully when I give you a grade. So be sure you come up and fill that in. If you are done early, feel free to use any remaining time in class to start working on this week's reflective journal or to work on any Telepass samples that you haven't finished. But be sure you finish this overall reflection form here before you move on to something else. All right, I'm going to shut up and let you get those reflection boxes finished.